Dear students, let's start lecture number 23 on the topic digital signature of the course network security. Let's get started with the outline. So first of all, we will be revising lecture number 22 on the topic symmetric and asymmetric encryption and decryption, which we discussed in that lecture. We discussed encryption process, decryption process, and symmetric and asymmetric encryption and decryption. And then I'll explain the same encryption, asymmetric and symmetric and asymmetric with the help of diagram, and asymmetric encryption in a digital signatures. And then we made comparison between symmetric and asymmetric encryption. And today, in lecture number 23, we will be covering digital signature. And in the digital signature, we will be discussing signing and verification of the document. As you know that the digital signature is required for authentication and integrity. If you remember, in our topic of cryptography, we had discussed that what is authentication means only the message which is sent by the receiver is the authorized one, and this is called authentication. And integrity means the data is data or a message or a packet is not changed or not altered in a transit. So this is called digital signature. So then at the end I will be giving you an assignment, and then I'll share the sources which I have cited, and then we have a question answer session. So let's start with revision of lecture number 23 on the topic symmetric and asymmetric encryption and decryption processes. What is encryption? In a scenario where, for example, sender wants to send the message to the receiver over the where the internet is between the sender and receiver, so you cannot send your message directly to the receiver, because if you send the message over the network and some intruder or attacker gets this message, so your integrity or confidentiality will be lost. So in encryption, in the process of encryption, we convert the data in unreadable form before transmitting over the network. So this is the technique, that we convert the data into the form which cannot be read by any attacker or intruder until you have some specific key on the recipient side. The person have access to the key. So this is the underline, or you may call it the main goal, that the person should have access to the key if he or she wants to decrypt the data. So can convert into readable form and read it. Formally, encryption can be defined as a technique to lock the data by converting it to complex code using mathematical algorithm. As you know that these symmetric and asymmetric, they are mathematical algorithms. The code is so complex that even the powerful computer cannot will take even several years to break that code. So I hope that you understand this thing, that normally this is in case of, for example, if someone applies brute force attack on your system. So even he applies all the available options of the key, he cannot break it, or even it requires several years to break that code. Now, encryption, secure code can safely be transmitted over the network to the destination. The receiver, after receiving the data, can decode it using that particular key. So this is the main objective, that sender cannot send the data to the receiver directly. So sender will encrypt it, and then the message will travel over the internet and reaches a destination, where destination applies some particular key for decrypting and reading that message. So that process where the decoding of that complex algorithm is performed is known as decryption. Now, symmetric and asymmetric encryption and decryption. There are two types like symmetric and asymmetric. In symmetric key encryption, same key is used to lock or unlock the data. Now, first thing was encryption, that before sending the data, you must encrypt it or must convert it into unreadable form, and then the message will travel over the network and reach the destination, where destination applies some particular key on that to get the original plain text back. Now, another strategy is that how we convert that. For that, we have two kind of mechanism, both in encryption and decryption. So we have symmetric and asymmetric. In the symmetric, both sender and receiver that will be using the same key, as you know that. In the symmetric key encryption, after coding of data, key is sent to the destination user via some medium like postal service or telephone, because we cannot send the key over the network, because if that key is received by or hijacked by some intruder or malicious user, then your confidentiality and integrity will be lost. Because if the key is obtained by the hacker, the security will be compromised, as I mentioned. Key distribution is a complex task, because the security of key while transmission is itself is an issue. To avoid the transfer of key, a method called asymmetric encryption, key encryption is required. As I mentioned, that in symmetric, same key is used by the sender and receiver. So if that key is hijacked or received by your intruder, so he can read all your messages and your confidentiality will be lost. But transferring of key, this is an issue. This was an issue in symmetric encryption. So that's why asymmetric encryption was proposed. The key used to encrypt and decrypt data are different. So in this particular technique, two different keys are used, one for the encryption and another for decryption. Now, in the coming slide, I'll be explaining that how that will be maintained, because key distribution, this is a problem. This was a problem in symmetric key encryption. Every user possesses two keys, public and private key. As the name suggests, the public key is known to everyone, whereas private key is known to particular user who owns the key only. Suppose Alex sends a secret message to a receiver, Bob. He will encrypt the message using Bob's public key. As a public key is known to everyone, once the message is encrypted, the message can safely be sent to B over the network. So how, as you know, that in asymmetric encryption, two different type of keys are available, private key and public key. As their name suggests, that in private key, this will be known to only the particular user, but the public key, that will be known to everyone. So here, this mechanism is that if A wants to send the message to B, so what A does, that it converts with the public key, and once the message is received, and then it sends the message over the internet. Here you can see that in the process of encryption, plain text and then a process of encryption is performed, and then you will get the unreadable form like a ciphertext, and then it travels over the network. Network is not shown here. And then it reaches destination, where destination performing the reverse process of the that was performed reverse process performed, that was performed in encryption process. So after performing the reverse operation by the receiver, you will get the plain text back. So this is called symmetric encryption. Whereas in asymmetric, you can see that two different keys are available. So the plain text will be sent will be converted while applying the process of encryption. So it will be converted to ciphertext, and then this ciphertext will be sent over the network. And when it reaches the destination, another key will be applied that would be private or public key. In one mechanism which I have discussed, that what for example, if you consider this is Alice and this is Bob, and if Alice wants to send the message to the Bob, so what Alice does, that it first encrypt the message with the public key, as a public key is known to everyone. So that will be converted, and when it reaches the destination, the Bob will decrypt that message with its private key. So this is how the confidentiality and integrity will be maintained. As soon as the message is received by the Bob, now as you know that, as we discussed, that what Alice does, that Alice encrypt the message with the public key, which is known to all. So and then it after encryption, it sends the message over the network. As soon as the message received by the Bob, uses his private key to decrypt the message, generate the original text back, as I mentioned. While in asymmetric encryption, a message that is encrypted using a public key can only be decrypted using a private key. So this was a one mechanism, that a message that is encrypted with a public key, which is known to everyone, can be decrypted only using a private key. While a message encrypted with a private key, this is another mechanism, that if a message encrypted using a private key can be decrypted using a public key. Security of the public key is not required, as you know that, because it is publicly available and can be passed over the internet. Asymmetric key has a far better power in ensuring the security of the information transmitted during the communication. So this is very obvious that asymmetric is more powerful or more secure than symmetric, because in asymmetric you have two keys, where in symmetric one key is used for both the process of encryption and decryption. So asymmetric encryption is mostly used in day-to-day communication channel, especially over the internet. Popular asymmetric encryption algorithm includes like RSA, DSA, elliptic curve technique, and PKI, private public key certificates, or infrastructure. So these are the mechanisms which are available for asymmetric encryption. To use asymmetric encryption, there must be a way of discovering public key. This is very important. One typical technique used for digital certificate in a client server model. This is very important, that how you will be receiving. Now I'll explaining, this slide is showing that how that key will be issued, because as you know, this was a problem in symmetric encryption. That's why the asymmetric was introduced, because passing of that key was an issue. But in asymmetric, as you know, that one typical technique is use digital. So here digital signatures are used in a client server model of communication. Certificate is a package of information that identify a user and a server. It contains information such as organization. So these are the attributes which are normally in the digital signature, such an organization name, the organization that issued the certificate, user and email address and country, and the public key of the recipient. Or now, when a sender and a client require secure communication, send a query over the network to the third party. You may call it that this is provider of third party is a provider of digital signature, which send back a copy of the certificate. Other parties' public key can be extracted from the certificate. So as I mentioned, that public key will be available to the sender. So what sender does, that it will get the, for example, if a sender wants to do a communication with the receiver, what sender does, that it requests for a certificate from a third party, and third party provide him a certificate, and what sender does, that it extract the public key through that from that certificate from that digital signature, and using that digital signature and using that public key, it converts the message uh, um, into using that public key, it encrypt the message, and when it reaches the destination, uh, only that receiver can decrypt the message whose public key is used by the sender. Certificate can be used to uniquely identify the holder. This is very important, because once you have that, then a recipient will be confident that, okay, this message is sent by the authorized user. So then the authorization will be maintained. Now, these are the differences between symmetric and asymmetric encryption. So symmetric encryption using a single key that needs to be shared among the people who need to receive the message. While asymmetric encryption uses a pair of public key and a private key to encrypt and decrypt message when communicating. Symmetric encryption is an old technique, while asymmetric technique is relatively new one, as this was introduced due to the problem of distribution of key in symmetric encryption. Asymmetric encryption was introduced to complement the inherent problem of the need to share the key in the symmetric encryption model, eliminating the need to share the key by using a pair of public-private key. You know this thing. Asymmetric encryption take relatively more time than the symmetric encryption. This is very obvious that as two keys are used, so as you have a third party in that, because before starting communication, you must need a digital certificate for the communication. So definitely it takes time, and more mathematics is done in asymmetric as compared to symmetric encryption. So let's start with lecture number 23, digital signature. Digital signature technique for validation of data. Validation is a process of certifying the content of a document which is sent by the sender. So for example, if I receive some document from any sender, so first of all, I must know that that sender is authorized to send me that. So this is done by the digital signature. So digital signature not only validate the data, but also used for authentication. The digital signature is created by encrypting the data with a private key of the sender. The encrypted data is attached along with the original and sent over the internet to the destination. I'll show that with the help of a diagram at the end. The receiver can decrypt the signature when the public key of the sender, and now the decrypted message is compared with the original message. If both are same, it signifies that the data is not tampered, means integrity is maintained, and it also authenticity of the senders is verified. So digital signature is achieving two things. It provides you to confirm the authenticity of the sender, and it also helps you to identify the integrity, means that your data is not changed in a transit. And the authenticity of the senders is verified as someone with the private key, which is known to the owner only, can encrypt the data which was then decrypted by his public key. If the data is tampered while transmission, easily detected by the receiver, as the data will not be verified in the process, as I mentioned. that when it reaches the receiver, there is some mechanism is done through that mechanism, which is called digital signature. It confirms the authenticity of the sender as well as the integrity of the document. Moreover, message cannot be re-encrypted after tampering. This is also one of the things. For example, if you receive the message and you get it back, then you will not be able to re-encrypt it. As a private key, which possesses only by the original sender, is required for this purpose. As more documents are transmitted over the network, digital signatures are essential part of the legal as well as the financial transition. So this is the requirement of the requirement of today, that for example, if you are sending or you are dealing different kind of business transaction over the internet, so that digital signature must be there. So to identify the to verify the authenticity and integrity of that document. It not only provides the authenticity of a person and validation of the document, but it also prevent denial or agreement at later stage. Suppose a shareholder instruct the broker via email to sell the share at the current price. After the completion of the transaction, by chance the shareholder reclaims the share by claiming by claiming the email to be forged or bogus. To prevent these unpleasant situations, digital signatures are required. So as I mentioned that, for example, if you are performing any financial or very sensitive, or you are playing with very sensitive information, so digital signature should be there in order to maintain the integrity, in order to maintain the authenticity and integrity of the document or data. Now, this is the whole process. As I mentioned that in digital signature, you have a divided into two parts, like signing party and verification party. So this is sender and this is receiver. For example, if the signer sends the data and then hash function is applied, and you will get this as your outcome. So after that double hash, this encrypt hash using signer's private key. So private key is used of the signer, means sender, and this will convert into that, and then it will be attached with the digital signature provided by the third party, and they both are attached and sent to the and sent, and this after the output of these two, this is called digital signed data. And when it reaches the destination will perform verification. So how the verification will be performed, like it convert the data, as we have a data and we have a hash key of that, and performing hash function on the data and decrypt using the signer's public key. Here you have the signer's private key, and here is the signer's public key is used, and you will get this. If both the data are same, this means that no one, the sender who sent the data is valid, and no changes are made over the network, means the data is data traveled over the network without being altered. So this means your confidentiality and integrity both are maintained while the communication, and both are, that both are the key ingredients of the security. So this is how the signing will be done and verification will be done. So with that, this is assignment. So send at least one practical example of digital signature and electronic signature. You have to make the difference between these two, that are these same, digital signature and electronic signature, and then send a practical example on each via KCMS. These are the sources which I have used for making these slides. If you have any problem, you can visit these links for exploring more about this topic. So if you have any question, you can ask me through KCMS, WhatsApp, or you can email me. My email is listed at the bottom of this slide. So I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So with that, we reach end of this lecture. So till next lecture, Allah Hafiz.